At 4 o'clock in the morning on April 21st, 2021, the Indonesian submarine KRI Nanggala-402 requested permission to dive. She was conducting a torpedo firing exercise in the Bali Sea, north of the island of Bali, in waters approximately 700 meters deep. Permission was granted. The submarine descended beneath the surface. She never came back up. 53 men were aboard: officers, enlisted sailors, a weapons crew preparing for a routine torpedo drill. The submarine was a Type 209, a German-designed diesel-electric boat built in 1978, one of the most widely exported submarine designs in the world. She had been overhauled in South Korea in 2012 and was considered operational. She had completed similar exercises before. Nothing about this dive was supposed to be unusual. Within hours, search ships detected an oil slick near the submarine's last known position. Helicopters reported the smell of diesel fuel over the water. Debris began to surface: a bottle of periscope lubricant, a torpedo component, prayer rugs from the crew's quarters. 3 days later, an underwater vehicle located the wreckage on the ocean floor at a depth of 838 meters. KRI Nanggala-402 had broken into 3 pieces. The hull had been crushed. All 53 crew members were dead. It was the worst submarine disaster in the world since the loss of the Russian submarine Kursk in 2000. This is naval depth. The Type 209 submarine is one of the most successful submarine designs in history. Developed by Hauptwerke Deutsche Werft in Kiel, Germany, in the late 1960s, the Type 209 has been built in greater numbers than any other submarine design of the post-World War II era. Over 60 boats have been produced for navies around the world, including Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, Egypt, Greece, India, Indonesia, Peru, South Korea, South Africa, Turkey, and Venezuela. The design is proven. The Type 209 is a medium-sized conventional submarine displacing approximately 1,200 to 1,500 tons submerged, depending on the variant. She is powered by diesel engines for surface running and electric motors for submerged operations, with a battery capacity that allows several days of submerged patrol. She carries 8 torpedo tubes and a complement of 14 torpedoes. She is not the most advanced submarine in the world, but she is reliable, affordable, and effective. KRI Nanggala-402 was the second of 2 Type 209 submarines delivered to the Indonesian Navy. She was built at the Hauptwerke Deutsche Werft shipyard in Kiel and commissioned in 1981. Her sister ship, KRI Nanggala-401, was commissioned in 1981 as well. Together, they formed the entirety of Indonesia's submarine force for nearly 3 decades. By 2021, Nanggala was 43 years old. Submarines, like all warships, have a finite service life. Their pressure hulls endure thousands of cycles of compression and decompression as they dive and surface. Over time, the metal fatigues, microscopic cracks develop. Welds that were perfect when the boat was new begin to weaken. Seals degrade. Piping corrodes. Systems that were state-of-the-art in 1978 become obsolete. Nanggala had undergone a major overhaul at Daewoo Shipbuilding in South Korea in 2012, nearly a decade before the accident. The refit extended her operational life, but it did not make her new. The 2012 overhaul had been extensive. The submarine's hull was inspected, batteries replaced, diesel engines overhauled, and combat systems updated. South Korean shipbuilders installed new sonar equipment and modernized the torpedo fire control system. The work took approximately 2 years and returned Nanggala to operational status. But a 9-year gap between that overhaul and the accident meant that systems had once again aged past their recommended service intervals. She was due for another refit in 2020, but the COVID pandemic delayed the work. Indonesian naval officials later acknowledged that certain maintenance items had been deferred due to budget constraints. Submarines require constant maintenance. Salt water corrodes metal. Rubber seals degrade. Electrical connections deteriorate in the humid, salt-laden atmosphere inside a submarine hull. Every day that maintenance is delayed is a day that risk increases. For a submarine approaching half a century of service, deferred maintenance is not a budget decision. It is a safety decision. When she sailed on her final exercise in April 2021, she was a 43-year-old submarine that was a year overdue for major maintenance. Nanggala had a crew complement of 34, but on the day of the exercise, 53 personnel were aboard. The additional crew members included weapons specialists and observers for the torpedo drill. This detail is critical to understanding what happened. The morning of April 21st was routine. Nanggala had sailed from the Surabaya naval base and transited to the exercise area north of Bali. The Bali Sea in this region drops rapidly from the shallow coastal shelf to deep water exceeding 700 meters. The underwater topography is complex with steep gradients and underwater ridges. The area is also known for a phenomenon called internal waves, massive underwater wave systems generated by the interaction of ocean currents with the seafloor topography. Internal waves are invisible from the surface. Unlike surface waves that you can see, internal waves move through the body of the ocean along the boundary between water layers of different temperatures and densities. These waves can be enormous, with amplitudes of 30 to 50 meters, meaning they can push a volume of water the size of a skyscraper up or down within minutes. A submarine caught in a strong internal wave can be carried hundreds of feet deeper than intended, pushed beyond its maximum safe operating depth, before the crew can react. The Indonesian Navy's investigation concluded that an internal wave was a likely contributing factor. Satellite imagery from Japan's Himawari 8 satellite and the European Sentinel satellite showed the presence of large underwater wave activity in the area at the time of Nanggala's dive. Rear Admiral Iwan Isnurwanto, commander of the Indonesian Navy Command and Staff School, stated that a wave moving at approximately 2 nautical miles per hour with a volume of 2 to 4 million cubic liters passed through the area where Nanggala was operating. But internal waves alone may not explain the disaster. Many experts suggested that the submarine's age and condition were the primary factors. Retired Australian Rear Admiral James Goldrick wrote that material failure was the most likely explanation. He noted that it does not take much loss of buoyancy for a submarine to lose control of its depth. A stuck valve, a failed seal, a crack in an aging ballast tank. Any of these could allow enough water into the boat to make her heavier than the surrounding water. Once a submarine begins to sink uncontrollably, she descends until the water pressure exceeds the strength of her hull. At that point, the hull collapses. The technical term is implosion. The Type 209 has an operating depth of approximately 250 meters and a maximum depth. The depth at which the hull is still expected to survive but should not routinely operate, of approximately 500 meters. Below 500 meters, the hull is in uncharted territory. The pressure at 800 meters is approximately 80 times atmospheric pressure, or roughly 80 kilograms pressing on every square centimeter of the hull. No Type 209 hull was designed to withstand that. To understand what happens when a submarine exceeds its crush depth, you must understand the physics of pressure hulls. A submarine hull is a cylinder of high-strength steel, typically between 25 and 40 millimeters thick, depending on the design. The hull is reinforced by internal ring frames, heavy steel ribs that run circumferentially around the inside of the cylinder, spaced at regular intervals. These frames resist the inward compression force of the water pressure. At design depth, the hull is under enormous stress, but within its engineered limits. Every steel molecule is compressed. The hull actually shrinks measurably, the diameter decreasing by several millimeters under the pressure. This compression is elastic. When the submarine ascends, the hull returns to its original shape. But steel has a limit. Beyond that limit, the compression becomes plastic, permanent. The hull begins to deform, frames buckle, welds crack. And then, in a fraction of a second, the entire structure collapses inward. The implosion of a submarine is one of the most violent events that can occur underwater. The hull collapses at the speed of sound in steel, approximately 5,000 meters per second. The volume inside the submarine is compressed to a fraction of its original size in milliseconds. The air inside, which was at atmospheric pressure, is suddenly compressed to hundreds of atmospheres. The temperature spikes to thousands of degrees for an instant. Everything inside, equipment, fittings, human bodies, is obliterated. The crew would not have experienced pain. The nervous system cannot process signals faster than the implosion propagates. The 53 men aboard Nanggala were alive 1 millisecond and gone the next. There is a terrible mercy in that. When Nanggala's wreckage was found at 838 meters, the evidence told its own story. The hull had been crushed. The submarine had broken into three major sections. The bow, the midsection, and the stern were separated and scattered across the seabed. Internal components were visible in the debris field. The implosion had been catastrophic, instantaneous, and total. The crew died in less than a second. The international search for Nanggala was one of the largest submarine rescue operations in recent memory. Within hours of the submarine being reported missing, Indonesia requested assistance from neighboring countries. Singapore deployed the submarine rescue vessel MV Swift Rescue, one of the few dedicated submarine rescue ships in the Asia-Pacific region. Malaysia, Australia, India, and the United States provided aircraft, ships, and underwater search equipment. The Australian frigate HMAS Ballarat was diverted to assist. An American P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft joined the search, but submarine rescue is only possible if the submarine is intact and the crew is alive. The rescue depth limit for most submarine rescue systems is approximately 600 meters. Nanggala was at 838 meters. Even if the submarine had survived the descent intact, which it did not, no rescue system in the world could have reached her. The families of the crew gathered at the naval base in Surabaya. For 3 days, they waited for news, clinging to the diminishing hope that their husbands, fathers, sons, and brothers might be found alive. Television cameras recorded their vigil. Relatives embraced each other, prayed together, and watched the sea from the dock where their loved ones had departed days earlier. The mathematics of submarine survival are cruel. A submarine carries a limited supply of emergency oxygen, typically enough for 72 hours at most. After that, the crew begins to suffocate. Even if Nanggala had somehow survived the descent intact, even if she was sitting on the bottom with her hull holding, the crew would have run out of oxygen by April 24th. Every hour that passed reduced the probability of rescue from unlikely to impossible. The search operation itself was a remarkable demonstration of international cooperation. Within 24 hours, vessels and aircraft from 6 nations were converging on the search area. The coordination required to organize assets from different countries with different communication systems, different procedures, and different languages into a coherent search pattern was a significant achievement. But coordination does not create capability. None of the ships on scene carried a submarine rescue system capable of reaching 800 meters. On April 24th, the Indonesian Navy changed the status of KRI Nanggala-402 from submiss to sub-sunk. All 53 crew members were officially declared dead. Indonesian President Joko Widodo visited the families and promised that the government would do everything possible to recover the remains. The Navy began planning a salvage operation to retrieve parts of the wreckage and the bodies of the crew. The operation was conducted over the following months using remotely operated vehicles and specialized lifting equipment, but the depth and the condition of the wreckage made full recovery impossible. Many of the crew remain on the ocean floor. The loss of Nanggala exposed a problem that extends far beyond Indonesia. Dozens of navies around the world operate aging submarines that were built in the 1970s and 80s. Many of these boats have been extended well beyond their original intended service lives through refits and overhauls, but a refit does not reset the clock. The pressure hull, the fundamental structure that protects the crew from the ocean, ages with every dive. Corrosion, fatigue, and stress accumulation are progressive and irreversible. At some point, an old submarine becomes dangerous regardless of how many times she has been overhauled. Indonesia is not alone in this predicament. Several navies in Southeast Asia operate submarines of similar age and condition. The Philippines has been seeking submarines for years, but currently operates none. Myanmar and Vietnam operate submarines with varying levels of maintenance capability. Even South Korea's Collins-class boats in Australia, while much newer than Nanggala, have experienced maintenance challenges that limited their availability. The Nanggala disaster also highlighted the critical shortage of submarine rescue capability in the Indo-Pacific region. Singapore's Swift Rescue is one of the very few dedicated submarine rescue vessels in Asia. Most countries in the region have no submarine rescue capability at all. If a submarine emergency occurs in the South China Sea, the East China Sea, or the waters of Southeast Asia, the nearest rescue system may be days away. For a submarine crew with limited oxygen and emergency supplies, days is too long. The lesson of Nanggala is the same lesson that every submarine disaster teaches. The ocean is unforgiving. Submarines operate in an environment where a single failure, a stuck valve, a cracked weld, a miscalculated current, can turn a routine dive into a catastrophe. The margin between life and death is measured in meters of depth and seconds of reaction time. The United States Navy learned this lesson with USS Thresher in 1963 and created the SubSafe program that has prevented the loss of a certified submarine for over 6 decades. Russia learned it with the Kursk in 2000, though whether the lessons were fully absorbed remains debatable. Argentina learned it with KRI San Juan in 2017, when a submarine with 44 crew members disappeared in the South Atlantic and was not found for over a year. Each of these disasters resulted in the deaths of every person aboard. Each was caused by a combination of technical failure, institutional shortcomings, and the unforgiving physics of the deep ocean. And each one reinforced the same truth. A submarine is either maintained to the highest possible standard or it becomes a coffin. Indonesia's Navy was not negligent. It was under-resourced, operating aging submarines with limited budgets, deferred maintenance, and no domestic repair capability is a reality for many smaller navies. The decision to extend Nanggala's service life rather than replace her was driven by economics, not indifference. Indonesia simply could not afford to buy new submarines fast enough to retire the old ones. This is a dilemma that many Indo-Pacific nations face. Submarines are among the most expensive and complex weapon systems in the world. A modern diesel-electric submarine costs between $500 million and $1 billion. For countries with limited defense budgets, maintaining even a small submarine force requires painful trade-offs. The choice between a major overhaul and other defense priorities is a choice between future safety and present capability. In the aftermath of the disaster, Indonesia accelerated its plans to modernize its submarine fleet. Indonesia ordered 2 improved Type 209 submarines from South Korea's Daewoo Shipbuilding, designated the Nagapasa class, with an option for more. In 2024, Indonesia signed a contract with France's naval group for the construction of 2 Scorpion-class submarines with transfer of technology to Indonesian shipyards. These new submarines will replace the aging Type 209 boats and provide Indonesia with a more capable and more modern underwater force. But modernization takes years. The Scorpion submarines will not be delivered until the late 2020s at the earliest. Until then, Indonesia's submarine fleet remains small, aging, and vulnerable. 53 men went to sea on April 21, 2021. They were sailors serving their country in one of the most demanding environments on Earth. They boarded a 43-year-old submarine that was overdue for maintenance, dove into waters with complex and dangerous underwater currents, and descended past the point from which no rescue was possible. The ocean does not care about budgets or maintenance schedules or political priorities. It exerts the same pressure on every hull, whether the submarine was built this year or 43 years ago. And when the hull cannot withstand that pressure any longer, the ocean wins. KRI Nanggala-402 rests on the seafloor at 838 meters, broken into 3 pieces. 53 men still aboard. They are on eternal patrol. This is Naval Depth. Subscribe and stay with us.